Hello and welcome to another edition of Tech Tip Tuesday. This week we will continue our series on ensuring our communications are accessible to all of our families and WCAG compliant. If you recall, our previous video was on ParentSquare Studio Editor, and it can be viewed on our Instructional Technology YouTube channel at Tech Tip Tuesday. For this week's Tech Tip, we're going to focus on using Canva. Canva is a wonderful design tool that can be used for a wide range of tasks. It is important to remember, however, that Canva is a design tool and not a communication tool. Canva does have a feature that allows you to check for accessibility, but it is not perfect, and the user has to do a lot of work on their end to make sure that everything created is WCAG compliant. So instead of using Canva to design an entire newsletter, consider using it to design elements of a newsletter, such as a banner or images that you can insert into the body of the newsletter you create inside a Studio Editor. The reason why we want to avoid using PDF files is that they do not work well with translation or read aloud. And our purpose is to ensure that all important information and text sent out to families is accessible to everybody. Also want to give you guys a reminder to use a checklist. Using a checklist can help ensure that you consistently check for important details in any message that you send out to your intended readers. Things like making sure you have good color contrast, that you add alternative text for all images and graphics in your newsletter or communication, that you're using easy-to-read fonts, you have a simple layout, and that the informational text is in the body of the message, not in any images or as a PDF file. Let's get started. So here I have a Canva design opened up and ready to go. For this example, I want to create a banner for a newsletter that I create later on inside of Studio Editor. Now I've already added two elements or shapes to my banner previously, and I want to select an accessible color. When I click on one of the elements, I have a color wheel right up here at the top. When I click on that color wheel, I notice that the district has added branding kits for all of the schools. So I don't have to go through all of the different colors inside of Canva. I can go ahead and select from the branding kit. I'm going to click on the drop down, and I could keep the district branding kit, or I can type in my school's abbreviation. In this case, I'm going to choose Montgomery Central Middle. Click on the branding kit, and then select the brand kit button. From here, I now have a color palette available, particularly for this school. And all I have to do is click on the color, and then make sure it matches my element as I choose. All right. Now, I want to go ahead and take a look at Canva's font library. Now, I have this font already selected, and I can highlight it. Canva's font library is quite large, with many fonts that work well for access and many that do not. So instead of searching for a specific font, I can go ahead and do the same thing with colors and select the CMCSS brand kit. When I click on the font drop-down, scroll down until I find the brand, and right here it's got MCMS selected, but I want the CMCSS version because that has the branding kit for the whole district. Once I have that selected, and I scroll back down to where I find CMCSS, I'm going to notice the range of fonts that are easily read and work well for communicating with my families. I'm going to go ahead and choose Freight Text Black, and we can see that the font was already adjusted. Remember to keep the color contrast in mind when choosing the font color. Canva does not automatically adjust the font colors, and you can check with Canva's Check Accessibility option up here at File, and then Accessibility and check Design Accessibility, but this is not perfect. A rule of thumb is just to match light font colors with dark backgrounds and vice versa. Make sure to choose a font that looks good, but is easily read and accessible for all of the readers. Remember, many people are going to be reading this newsletter. I want it to be accessible for everybody. If I wanted to add a logo, right over here in the options, I've got the brand kit as well, and I can select logos from the district. Since I'm going to stick with Montgomery Central Middle for my example, I'm going to go ahead and type in the school's abbreviation. And then I've got a selection of logos. If I click See All, this will bring up all the logos available. And I can click, and it will automatically put it into my image where I can readjust and move it around. Now, it's important to remember that some of these logos may not work well depending on what background color you choose. For example, this one right here is a good logo that comes from the branding kit, but this darker color, Montgomery Central, and then the even darker color, Middle School, it's a little bit hard to see. So I may want to delete that logo, go back to my brand kit, and maybe choose a different one that would work a little bit better depending on what color I'm using. All right, let's go ahead and scroll down and let's take a look at some other images. Canva has a library of graphics and images. For example, this one that I found of a boy sneezing. Maybe I'm creating a newsletter talking about seasonal allergies or illnesses, and I want to add this image into my newsletter. Now, some, but not all of these graphics will give you the option to adjust the color in the graphic itself. So I've clicked on this image right here, and I've got these 4 different colors up here at the top. Now, depending on the background color I have for this, I may want to go ahead and readjust it, and I can click on that little color wheel, and I can change the colors to see if they fit my picture better. Take your time to go through these, but again, you got to make sure that whatever color I pick here is going to work well and not contrast with other colors I may have in the newsletter. Also, it's important to remember that not every graphic or image you upload or from Canva will allow you to do this. So take some time and make sure that you choose something that's going to be accessible. When you're in Canva and if you want to create a banner from scratch, you got to consider what size banner or file you want to use. And when I'm saying size of a file, I'm talking about the size of the design as it will appear on the digital newsletter. So how you do that, you'd go into Canva and you go to Create, click on the Create option, and then we're going to go ahead and type in banner. And then I'm just going to go ahead and grab landscape. It doesn't really matter which one because we're going to go in there and we're going to manually change the size of the banner to fit the dimensions that they may see inside of the Studio Editor. When you're inside of the banner, you would come up here to resize after it loads up. And then we're going to select custom size right here. Now it's going to give you several different options. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the top where it's got width, height, and units, and I'm going to change the units to px for pixels. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose 600 by 200. And then I'm going to select resize this design. If I click copy and resize, it's going to create a copy of the current design I'm working on and keep the original dimensions, and then make a new copy with the new dimensions. You would really only do that if you're modifying something you've already got created. But for this case, I'm just going to select resize this design. And then what it will do after a few moments, it will resize it, and we can see that the dimensions look a little bit more fitting of a banner for a newsletter that someone would read online. Now, if you are doing this and modifying an already created banner, you may have to go in there and readjust the sizes of the materials or the elements. Let's go ahead and take a moment and take a look at the one that I resized from my video earlier. I went ahead and resized this one to the 600 by 200 to fit the dimensions. Another option is that you can choose 700 by 500, which would make it a little bit of a larger canvas. That could still work, or the 600 by 200 that I mentioned earlier. Now for pictures itself, if you want to have a picture show up in Studio Editor and make sure that it's not pixelated depending on where you're getting that image, you can also resize. And for this time, we're going to choose a custom size, but this one is going to be 600 by 400. And again, we're going to change the units to px for pixels. This is the size that would be most viewable or easy to view inside of a Studio Editor newsletter in ParentSquare without pixels creating an unsharpened image. All right, so now I'm done. I want to go ahead and take these designs, take these images, and I want to upload them into ParentSquare Studio Editor. So how do I do so? I'm going to start off first with my banner right here, and I'm going to select Share at the top, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to click Download. Now, it is suggesting that I use a PNG. If I click that drop down, I could also choose JPG or JPEG. Now, both of these image files work well with the image option in Studio Editor. I am not going to print off or download a PDF since this is going to be a digital communication, and a PDF would not work. So stick with JPEG or PNG if you want to go ahead and add this image into your Studio Editor. Once I have that option selected, I click Download, and it will go ahead and download that image to my computer, which I can then upload into ParentSquare. Inside a Studio Editor in ParentSquare, I want to go ahead and upload the banner and the image that I just created and designed inside of Canva. So how do I do that? I've opened up a template that I've created previously, and I notice that I already have a header created with this template. I want to go ahead and remove that and replace it with the one I made inside of Canva. When I put my mouse on top of the header, I notice I have this trash can icon, and I'm going to go ahead and click and delete it. I'm going to select images over here with my content block options, and I get these dotted lines, and when I put my mouse, I have the option to add an image wherever that dotted line is selected. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add Image, and then I'm going to come over here to the right, click in the Image option area, select my banner, and then select Open. As the banner is loading up, I want to go ahead and add my alternative text for this banner. Remember, even though I have text in here where it says Mr. Authier's class and it says Indians, a screen reader will not pick up that text because it's a picture. So I need to go ahead and put a good description right here for my alt text. I could go ahead and use the AI to generate the suggestion right there. I also noticed that it left off the name of my class newsletter. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Title of the newsletter is Mr. Authier's class. Make sure that my alternative text works, then select Save and Close. I want to go ahead and add that image earlier that I created of the boy blowing his nose. So I'm going to go ahead and select again Images, select a new area, click in my image box, find the picture I downloaded, select Open, and as it loads up, take some time and add my alternative text. Then save and close. Now that I have my newsletter ready to go, remember I still need to use that checklist to go through the entire newsletter. I've got my banner, got my image, got to make sure that all my text, any other colors, any other pictures that I add to this go through that checklist before I click save and finish and then post and send my newsletter out to my families. Remember, the goal is to make sure that everything that I send out to my families is as accessible as possible so that all of them can read it and understand the information that I'm sending out. Remember the following when creating materials used in communications with Canva. ParentSquare is our district's primary communication tool, and Canva should be used for designing elements and not full communications. Elements created by Canva can then be uploaded in ParentSquare Studio Editor, but make sure to check for accessibility features first, such as color contrast and font readability, before downloading the Canva design, as once they've been uploaded into ParentSquare, they cannot be readjusted. Download any Canva design as a PNG or JPEG file and not PDF, and then once uploaded, make sure to add alternative text inside of ParentSquare. Stay tuned for our next in the WCAG series when we talk about Google Sites in week 3 and making sure that any Google site that you make is accessible to all who view it.
If you have questions about this or other instructional technology, please reach out to us individually or through our instructional technology email, instructionaltechnology@cmcss.net. On Tuesdays, we have open office hours from 2:30 to 5. It's a time where you can join us via Zoom and ask any instructional technology questions that you have. If we don't have the answer then, we can get back with you at the Screencastify or visit you in person. For the remainder of February, our February 17th, we'll have 2 classes. We'll have Magic School for All Introduction and ClearTouch Online Class Tools. Following up at the end with February 24th, Magic School for All Next Steps. In March, on March 3rd, we'll have Pair Practice. On March 10th, we'll have Canva Advanced and Canva Code as one class. There are no tech trainings during the week encompassing March 17th due to spring break. Enjoy that. March 24th, we'll have Edpuzzle Intro and Best Practices. And on March 31st, we'll have iExcel Intro and Best Practices. If you need help with this or other instructional technology, reach out to us at instructionaltechnology@cmcss.net. Join our YouTube channel at Tech Tip Tuesday, or visit us at our website, tinyurl.com/cmcssits.